Get away from her, you bitch!
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hopefully I'm loud and clear. I just had a few tech issues before we went live, but hopefully they're sorted out now. How is everybody? And thank you for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. The purpose of this stream was just to kind of reveal to you, those of you that know or didn't know exactly what the finalists are for this Thursday. But also, when you're kind of doing these streams, you don't really take in what people say, because I'm running the show and thinking about what's coming next, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the time I miss a lot of the chats, and so I wanted to do this today to sort of get your opinion on some of these films, just kind of a little sort of interaction between us. No voting or anything like that, apart from in the chat you will see at the moment a wildcard vote. So I had a look at the third place titles over the last 10 weeks, and by the way, folks, the engagement on this has been fantastic, and I can, you know, all I can do is thank you for joining me every Thursday for it. It's just been incredible that 10,000 views across all the episodes, I think I counted around about 7,000 votes or something like that. 200 movies we voted on, and yeah, it's a good 2 to 3 months work, and I'm staggered that engagement remains as consistent as it does. So thank you so much for joining me. It really does mean a lot. So I had a look at all the 10 weeks this morning, and I picked out 4 wildcards. These are my choices. They weren't on any particular vote or anything like that. It wasn't based on the number of votes, but they were all third place movies. There was the option to include Terminator and Predator, and it was kind of a bit contentious as to whether those titles should be included in the first place anyway. So I didn't include those because we have Aliens and The Burbs in the final, which were 2 titles that we voted on because we weren't sure whether they should be allowed or not. So I just disregarded Terminator and Predator because we have Aliens on that front. But what I did pick was Christine, Friday the 13th Part 2. Hang on a minute. There's my camera. 1 second. I forgot to put my fan on. Be right with you. Should be back any sec. Okay. Let me just turn this off. There we go. We're back. These cameras run hot, and if you forget to put the fan on, they shut down when you're running in 4K. Yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 were the first 2 choices that I made, simply because I know Friday the 13th Part 2 is a huge fan favorite, and it was up against some big competition in 1981 with American Wolf in London and Halloween 2. Also, I chose Salem's Lot as well, and The Hitcher, which is a personal favorite of mine, and I'd kind of like to see how it does. So I was being a bit selfish there. 34 of you with us on this Saturday, 37 of you with us on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Good afternoon to everybody in the UK. Good morning to everybody in the East and West Coast. What is it? 8:15 in the morning on the West Coast at the moment. Thank you for joining me. Okay, let's have a look at who's in the chat first. We have Daz, we have Tony Four Eyes, Wayne Bonner's in there, Chester's in there as well. I saw Zara was in there too. Duke's here. Deshawn's in there, Rupert Reynolds, Brandon's here. A good bunch of us at the moment. A good bunch of us. So let's move over to this next screen here. And the first film to qualify for the final was The Fog, a personal favorite of mine, and a movie for me that sits up there as one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely adore the atmosphere that Carpenter creates in this film. I love the setting, and I was fortunate enough to visit the church a couple of years ago when I went to the Halloween 45 convention. Got to go in there and got to see it from inside and out. Beautiful little church in Sierra Madre. Yeah, I obviously didn't see this at the cinema because I was only 7 at the time, but I do remember watching it on TV when it was first broadcast, probably in around about 1981, 82 or something like that on the BBC. And I remember being really taken by it then. I'd already seen Halloween. I'd already seen Assault on Precinct 13. You know, some of those Carpenter movies that had really caught my attention. And this one caught my attention straight away as well. Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously, from Halloween, is in this in a kind of pointless role. Like, if you removed her from this film, the film still works. Like, she has no need to be in this film whatsoever. She has nothing to do other than for a bit of slap and tickle for Atkins. But the film itself is just a fantastic ghost story and a movie that has stayed with me all these years. And every time they do a new release of this film, I get excited and end up buying it. I've seen it at the cinema about, when was it now? Probably about 5 or 6, pre-pandemic I saw it. It played as part of the London Film Festival, and I was lucky enough to get invited along to that. And it was superb. Really, really cool to see it on the big screen. So what do you guys think of The Fog? Do you think it deserves to be in the final? Do you think it deserves to win? Let me know in the comments, and let's have a chat about it. We got there. Oh, my Chunky Geordie says, don't forget to send the like button some love, please. Thank you, Gina. Agreed, The Fog is great, says Duke. Wayne Bonner says, absolutely love The Fog. Remake was dog shit. This is one of my absolute favorite films of all time. Yeah, the remake. I will not talk about the remake. I love The Fog, says Gina. I was 5 when I first watched it, and it was great. It is. It's absolutely fantastic. It really is. And Duke agrees with me. Absolutely pointless. Are you agreeing with me there or laughing at me? Her character does nothing at all. She doesn't move the plot along in any shape or form. She's just there. She's just literally a name to get bums on seats at this point. The score by Carpenter was great. His music in movies is fantastic. Yeah, the score of this, Chester, is terrific. And I think in some instances, I think it's better than Halloween. And I've always said that I can sometimes wake up and think The Fog is a better movie than Halloween. They pivot for me between the two of them, you know, as my favorite films of all time. They really do. I can never tire of watching this movie. I really can't. Tony Four Eyes says, I love The Fog. Between that and H2, it's my favorite. Cool. And Zara says, having only watched it for the first time recently, thanks to you, it absolutely deserves to be in there. Cool. I remember you telling me you really enjoyed it. And it does get better as you the more you watch it, the more you notice, the more you get kind of drawn into the atmosphere of the film. And you know, just the I mean, the scale of it is huge. I think, you know, that those sweeping shots along the kind of California coastline, it looks absolutely brilliant. However, even though we got to go to the church, the lighthouse that's supposedly in the same area is a good 8 or 9 hours drive away from the actual church. But yeah, it's a beautiful little small town horror film. I really like it. To be honest, I love The Fog, says Chester, but it should not win. Okay. Duke says, I agree with you, Darren. She has nothing to do in the movie. Absolutely not, no. Still not done a Fog cosplay of you. Yeah, that would be pretty difficult. Duke says, agreed, Chester, The Thing deserves to win. Alternatively, The Shining. yeah, a lot of people saying the thing's gonna do it. We'll see. We'll find out on Thursday. Okay, let's move on to the next film. The next film on the list is The Shining. The Shining, a film that I did see at a very young age on VHS. I'd been introduced to it after watching Terror in the Aisles, the documentary that I kind of mention a lot, which is such a great little doc. It's on YouTube. You can watch it there. That came out in 1984 and basically is like every sort of kid who was born in the 70s Bible for horror. It really is. It's hosted by Donald Pleasance, Nancy Allen, and it's just a journey through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s horror movies. And it's cut together like one huge trailer. It really is. It's a cool little watch. And The Shining was quite prominent within Terror in the Aisles, and that's what drove me to watch it. Now, having been a fan of slashers around that time as a young kid, The Shining didn't quite deliver for me back then what I wanted. The clips that they showed on that documentary were all the great ones of him running around with an axe and smashing the bathroom door and chasing the kid in the maze, all that kind of stuff. But then when you actually watch the film, it's something completely different. And it took me a long time to warm to The Shining. A number of watches. Now I think it's fantastic. And, you know, I just recently bought an amazing plush edition of it, this huge 4K box set, which I haven't quite watched yet, but I am really looking forward to getting stuck into it. So, yeah, The Shining is a movie that you kind of, I guess, warm to over time. And, obviously, nowadays, I think that The Shining and Doctor Sleep are great movies. We never did an episode on TSL about The Shining because it always strikes me as a movie that if you try and peel back the layers, you get so many different opinions on it that it felt like there would be some sort of ruck in the chat room over this film. So we never took it on. But who knows? Maybe I'll do it further down the line on this channel. Kubrick is my favorite director, says Duke. So anything Kubrick does, it for me. Okay. The Shining always gave me the shivers up and down the spine, says Texas Nacho. The more I watch The Shining, the more I love it. I actually it's actually more funny. I find it. Jack is kind of hilarious. He is funny in this film. He's great. I mean, for Jack Nicholson, it was probably just a day at the office. He does maniacal really easily, but there are also, if you've watched any of the documentaries on The Shining and seen how particular Stanley Kubrick was, I'm sure it wasn't an easy ride for him. Brandon says Terror in the Aisles is a must-watch for horror lovers. It is, absolutely. And if you've got the Halloween 2 original, I can't remember which one it is now, one of the original Shout Factory versions, it's on there as an extra. If you've never checked it out, you should watch it. Mark Kermode's favorite film? I thought that was The Exorcist. I thought The Exorcist was his favorite film. Evil Alex says, darling, light of my life, stop swinging that bat, Wendy. Yeah. Darling, Wendy, light of my life. I watch The Shining whenever we get the first real snowfall. Cool. Jester says he is Johnny. Do you guys think it would win, though? Do you think it would win? Do you think it's got a good chance of... I mean, it didn't beat The Fog in the first round, in the first, show that we did. So, will it have, enough people behind it, given the channel has kind of grown over the last 10 weeks, to push it into first place? If The Shining wins, I won't be happy, says Gina. I loved it until I married someone like Jack. Oh, gee Christ. Jack was fantastic in it, but he was basically being himself. A lot of people think that, don't they? Rupert, how are you doing, buddy? Says, I haven't seen The Shining in at least 20 years. Definitely due for a rewatch. Oh, do. You'll be surprised. Marisol says, oh no, I can't join this morning. Have a great one, guys. Bye, Darren. No worries, Marisol. It'll still be here afterwards for you to watch. Thank you for chiming in, though. Shining and Doctor Sleep, great double feature in the winter when it's a good snowy night. Yeah, I agree. And Brandon says, Kermode's favorite is The Exorcist, followed closely by Jeremy. Yeah, I always thought his favorite film was The Exorcist. Duke says, I don't think it's going to beat The Thing. No. I have a suspicion the Thing might win. I really do. Okay, let's move on to the next film. And don't forget, folks, the vote is live in the chat. It's currently tied between Christine and Friday the 13th Part 2. Does that mean we have to put 2 wild cards in? Let's see what happens. But 37 of you have voted at the moment. There's 47 watching. Folks, if you could drop a vote in there, that would be really cool. We're going to stick we're going to stick a wild card in for sure. But if the vote's tied, then I will put 2 in on Friday. On Thursday evening. Okay. 1981, the winner of 1981 back 9 weeks ago or whenever it was Halloween 2. One of my favorite sequels of all time. Certainly the best Halloween sequel in my eyes. And I was really pleased to see it win that week. I really was. But what did you think? This was a movie that, I mean, I saw Halloween at a really young age, probably in about 80, 81, something like that. And it was so cool to learn after watching the original Halloween that there was a Halloween 2 in the video shop. Like, I didn't have to wait the 3 years that everyone else had to wait, because I learned about this film when we rented VHS players back in the early 80s, and it was one of the videos that came along with that player. You had things like Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T., and all these videos were with it, and Halloween was one of them. And I watched Halloween, and within a month or two, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something like that, I'd seen Halloween 2 on that Thorny MI video release that was out in the UK. And I loved it. I did love it. I really did. I knew there was something different about Michael. Couldn't put my finger on it. And it wasn't until I was savvy enough to kind of check the cast. Remember, I'm only 9 years old or something at this point. Check the cast and credits and realize that, oh, it's played by a different guy. That's why he's slightly different. But what do you think? Do you think Halloween 2's got a good chance of being the #1 film of the 80s on Thursday? Let me know in the comments. Tony Forrest says, Kermode says Exorcist was his favourite, but over time he has grown to love The Shining more. Really? Okay. I didn't know that. Sean Radley says, forgotten how many times I've watched this. What, the Halloween 2? Love it, but it's not going to win, says Duke. Wayne Bonner says Halloween 2 is a good film, but for me it lacked the Carpenter feel. Lent a little more into being a basic slasher. But good film, especially for a sequel. Yeah, that's the thing about it, is that they are kind of seamless. I remember as a kid editing together on a VHS Halloween and Halloween 2, taking the credits out and just making them like this smooth transition from one to another. I mean, the quality of the VHSs was slightly different, but it still sort of works. It really does. I mean, they were really able, by using the same locations and everything, really able to create that 1978 feel 3 years later when they did Halloween 2. A little continuity error with Donald's lapels on his jacket, but that's it. That's the only thing that you can. And the fact that the ground where Michael lands is covered in grass, whereas when he landed in 1978, it was kind of like a bit threadbare, wasn't it? The ground was more dirt than grass. But other than that, continuity is excellent throughout. It really is. Evil Alex says, I liked Halloween 2 a lot, but the more I watch it now, I kind of like it less, unless Michael looks and walks weirder than H1. Film is slower and Jamie mostly chilling in bed with a wig. Still like it though. She is. That's the thing. She'd cut her hair around that time and had to wear this kind of god awful wig. And you know how the hell that thing didn't go up with Michael when the explosion went off at the end, I've no idea. Chester Franklin says, I freaking love Halloween 2 a lot. Best sequel in the franchise. Was the first movie in the franchise I got into watch during Fear Fest every October. The synthesizer score was great. Yay. He did a really great score, did Alan Howarth. Really made it his own. Last 15 minutes are great, though Loomis and Michael fighting it out and the explosion firewalk are awesome. Yeah. For those of you that haven't seen it, I did interview Dick Warlock about that firewalk. It's on the channel somewhere down below. He was great. And no, everybody that interviewed him in the past had kind of talked about sort of him playing Michael Myers than the stunt that he did. And I couldn't find anywhere online that went into any great detail about how the stunt was planned and performed, and was it a difficult thing to do? He says it wasn't the toughest thing he'd done at all. When you watch it, you think, Christ, it looks like it should be. But and he was so cool. He shared me some of his own personal photographs from the shoot, from the set when they were rigging it all up. He sent me some pictures of the damage to his arms. He burnt his arms while he was doing it. Like, for me, that would be like the worst thing ever. He was wearing this, the suit had metal zips in there, and as it got hotter, it actually burnt his forearms here. A long strip burn up each arm where the zips got so hot they just melted to his skin. And there's a shot of him immediately after the stunt that he does, sat in a chair outside with a checkered shirt on, like that, laughing away, and you can see the burn marks up his arm with the gel on the arms where they were obviously trying to cool it down for him. But he's smiling. He's smiling, covered in burns. Lovely guy, and it was so, I chatted to him for a good hour, and then I cut the episode down to a kind of 40 minutes or something like that, because he's old, and he said one or two things that I felt that maybe he would regret me putting online, and so I kind of pulled it back a little bit. He didn't say anything controversial or anything like that. It was just that because he's older and his memory was kind of failing him a little bit, it was just a bit sort of, I just edited around it, and it worked really well. But that's on my channel somewhere, folks. Dick Warlock interview. It's really cool. He was a great guy. Deshaun says, love this one over the first one. Really? Okay. Interesting. And Chess says, John Carpenter and Alan Howarth killed it with the score, in my opinion. The best score besides the original score. Darren is obsessed by that firewalk. I am. I make no apology for that whatsoever. I think it's one of the greatest fire stunts I've ever seen. I really do. And Don Max says, I once saw The Shining at the Fox Theatre in Atlanta, a nearly 100 years old motion picture palace with a large appreciative audience. A great way to see it. Okay, let's... Evil Alex says, the best detail for me about the firewalk is how the character still looks kind of the same in shape. Freddy's firewalk, you can see it's a stunt guy in the fire suit, like Freddy ate too much burgers. I mean, you can see the suit, but the detail that they went into, and I asked Dick Warlock about this, and this isn't I'm not going to credit myself for this. Dave McRae spotted this. That since we've had Halloween 2 in HD and 4K and things like that, if you look closely when Dick Warlock's walking on fire, he has the scalpel in his hand. And that was Dick's. I asked him about that. He said, it was my idea. I wanted it to look as authentic as possible. And so they taped the scalpel into his hand as he's doing the walk. So you can still see that he has the weapon with him, which I thought was really cool. And props to Dave for spotting that, because I never spotted that at all. And I've watched that firewalk hundreds of times. Okay. So next we have the runner-up from 1981, which was An American Werewolf in London. Again, another one of my favorite movies of all time, certainly in my top 10. And a movie that Michael Jackson's Thriller introduced me to, which is also in this top 20. Watching Thriller, and obviously Thriller was directed by John Landis. Michael Jackson spoke quite fondly on the making of Thriller about the fact that he loved An American Werewolf in London, and that he actively went out for John Landis to direct his Thriller music video. And seeing those clips of An American Werewolf in London on that Michael Jackson's Thriller video, the Piccadilly scene, I just saw that and I was just absolutely wowed. I was like, I've got to see this film. And so again, it was one of those that I begged my dad. It was one of the more expensive ones in the video shop. And so he'd be looking at the 2 for 50p section. I was up there for £1. And American Werewolf in London was up there. So I was like, Dad, we've got to watch this. We've got to. And eventually we rented it, the old Polygram Spectrum UK VHS. And honestly, the fact that it's also set in Yorkshire as well, I'm a Yorkshireman, And the fact that years later I went on to work for 20 years nearly in Piccadilly Circus, which is where this movie kind of, culminates, makes it a really special film for me. So I'm really pleased that it made it to the final. But what do you think? What do you think about American Werewolf in London? Do you think it deserves to be there? Would you like to see it win? Duke Fleet says he never noticed that. Oh, the scalpel in the hand. Yeah, look closely next time. You'll see it. It's in, as you're looking at Scream, left hand. That one. H2 has the best score and Pleasance's best Loomis performance. Yeah, I could get on board with that. Thriller introduced me to an American Werewolf 2, says Mark Wainwright. This is great, isn't it? And it's whatever you say about Michael Jackson, that music video and that making of video with Rick Baker and everybody is terrific. It really is. The making of Thriller gives all the best bits of American Werewolf in London away. Spoiler, it does. I know. Love American Werewolf in London. Saw it as a kid. Didn't have a clue what was going on. Always remembered him running through the forest and attacking the deer more than anything else. Yeah, those nightmare scenes are great. And, the one that I always remember is when he's on the gurney in the in the woods and he opens his eyes up and he's got the fangs and the green face and everything. I still think that's a really terrifying image. There's a lot of really haunting imagery in American Werewolf in London. I was talking, I was watching the Beware the Moon documentary recently that Paul Davis made. And the one thing that stands out about the scene when Jack comes to visit David in hospital, when he's that kind of fresh kill, is that flappy bit of skin on his neck as he's talking. Now, whether it was intentional or not, I don't know, but it just gives me the heebie-jeebies every time I see it. That bit of flesh just rattling away as he's talking. I think it's superb. Deshaun says, as much as I love MJ and horror, I can't watch that video, Zombie Michael. Yeah, it's really creepy, right? It really is. And I noticed on the Michael movie trailer, you get that split shot of him in Zombie Michael mode. It's amazing how British American Werewolf manages to be. It is, considering that it's kind of American money and American director. I thought they did a great job. They really did. Chester says, deserves to be on the list. An American Werewolf in London is my favorite werewolf movie. Mine too, Chester. Absolutely. I think it's most people's. And it came out at a time when, there were quite a few. Well, this is the thing. There were, I think in 81, there were 3 wolf movies, let's say. There weren't 3 werewolf. Everybody thinks Wolfen's a werewolf movie, and it isn't. It's something else completely different. But you also had The Howling, obviously, as well. Duke Fleed says, the dream sequence scared the hell out of me when I first watched it. Yeah, they do. Especially the dream within a dream sequence when Nurse Price gets stabbed to death by the kind of the Nazi pigs. That's horrible, that scene. Love Sean Clark's I can never fucking say this. Horror's Hallowed Grounds episode. I would love to visit the moors someday. Yeah, that was in Wales. It's supposed to be Yorkshire, but they actually filmed that in a part of Wales. Is Beware the Moon the documentary on the Blu-ray? That's correct, Wayne. Yeah. And there's also the book as well. He did a documentary and a book, a really cool book, which I think I've got around here somewhere. Fantastic book. The Mandela effect has everyone believe the egg falls through Jack's throat when he eats it. Really? I've never heard that before. The best werewolf effects ever. Yes. Yeah, they really nailed it. Echoes of the Unknown says, visited my mate in hospital after he had his appendix out. First thing I did was ask him if he could have a piece of if I could have a piece of toast. Made him laugh and nearly bust his stitches. Can I have a piece of toast? It's such a great moment. Bottin's effects in The Howling is great, but Dante didn't shoot it very well. I like The Howling. It's fun. It's fun. I agree with you. It's not as well made. It's not as well made a movie as An American Werewolf in London is, not by any stretch. Especially some of the effects are really dated in The Howling, particularly that kind of animated wolf sequence by the campfire. Okay, let's move on. Our next contestant for the final is from 1982. It won out in 1982, and it's The Thing. My first experience of The Thing. My dad was a cop for 30 years, and every year they had like there was a social, they had a social club in the police station. They had a bar in the police station, a big bar as well. And every year we would go, and there'd be a Christmas party there, that kind of thing. And I remember after the Christmas party, we went into the bar, and I sat in the bar, and they were watching The Thing on the TV. This would be about 83 or something like that. The Thing was on the telly. Honestly, I'd never seen it. Like, I once, my introduction to Alien was in a fish and chip shop, a Chinese fish and chip shop in Great Yarmouth. And I was waiting for a cod roe or something like that, and Alien was on the TV in the background. This is in the early 80s. That was my introduction to Alien. My introduction to The Thing was in a police station bar where all the cops were sat watching The Thing. And that made me want to go away and rent this thing and watch it. And it was the sequence that was on while I was in there, and I would have been 10 years old or something, was the defibrillator scene. And so, wow, I'm like, this is incredible. So that made me go away, go to the video shop in Shipley in West Yorkshire where I lived, a place called Bostocks. And they had it on the shelf there, rented it out, loved it, and been a huge fan ever since. Absolutely amazing film. And I had the privilege of watching, I think I mentioned this the other week, the documentary that's coming out pretty soon, which is The Thing Expanded. I managed to see a work print of that the other week. And if you've supported that project, or if you're thinking of buying it, you should do, because you're in for a real treat. It's not quite finished yet. Hopefully there's two key people they need to get into that documentary, which they're working on, and hopefully they're going to do it. And once it's finished, it's going to be amazing. It's 5.5 hours long. The cut I saw was 5.5 hours long. So yeah. But if you saw the Aliens Expanded documentary, and this is done by the guys that did In Search of Darkness, if you saw the Aliens Expanded one, you'll know what the quality's like. I mean, they got everybody in that documentary, from Sigourney Weaver to James Cameron. Everyone was on it. Michael Biehn, everybody. In this, they've got pretty much almost everybody that's still alive, apart from 2 people, which they're working on getting. And I think if they can present this documentary to those 2 people, they'll want in. So, folks, check it out if you get the chance. Rupert says, The Thing, an amazing film. Need to upgrade my DVD to a 4K. Deshaun says, I've seen The Thing so many times and it never creeped me out as a kid. I just would say, why is the black dude there? We don't mess with no snow. You talking about Childs? Keith David? Oh dear. The kennel scene still makes me almost feel like I'm going to throw up. The work that must have went into it, I know, and it almost killed Rob Bottin, did that gig, and he was so young. He was like 21 or something like that. He did Piranha when he was 18. Well, that was 78, and so in The Thing, I think he was when he was in production on it, he was like 21 years old, and he did have other people around him, but the majority of the work was conceived by him. And it took him a year of just kind of long days and nights working on it. It's no wonder the guy's just vanished, and no one knows where he is anymore, because he's probably still knackered from the Thing shoot. The Thing and Aliens is pretty much the same film. A group of people stranded taking on the superior being, Predator as well. That's a broad statement, really, isn't it? The Thing's more about paranoia. Brilliant film, but I can't forgive the dog scene, so I don't watch it, even though I own it. My brother used to tell me when that scene was over. Yeah, well, it's not a real dog, though, is it? It's an imitation. I like that these docs exist, but it's just too many hours for one film for me. Yeah, I watched it in one sitting on a Saturday. And I must admit, the reason I did that was because I had a limited amount of time to watch it. There was only a small window that they give you for security reasons to watch these things. And so, yeah, that was the reason why I watched it all in one sitting. But I think the Aliens one I watched in 2 or 3 sittings. The defib scene freaked me out, said Grey Simo. It's been great to see the thing go from despised to beloved since it's released. Exactly, Don Mac. Yeah, people absolutely were scathing about it when it first came out. And the one thing they do on the doc is they show you some of the thoughts of the critics and everything. Wilfred Brimley was only 22 when he made this. Yeah, no, he wasn't 22. I think he was in his like early 40s. He was off the back of China syndrome, wasn't he? And he was just unfortunate that he looked so old, so young. But he was in his. It's like Quint in Jaws. I think Robert Shaw was like he was like 43 or 44 or something when he did Jaws. Yeah, he looks like he's in his late 50s or something. Gina says, I was 8 when I first saw The Thing and had a 6-month-old puppy. The Thing and ID4 have the best making of docs. I've never watched the ID4 one. I should watch that. Remember when people used to call it that all the time? ID4? That was like a nickname for the film when it first came out, wasn't it? ID4. Independence Day. You want real paranoia? Try having a girl tell you she might be late. Carpenter would have done much more, but the failure of The Thing cost him. It did. He got fired from Firestarter because of the failure of The Thing. He was in pre-production on that film, and they fired him. What a shame. Carpenter's masterpiece destroyed his career. I hate that. Yeah, it's such a pisser. The Thing and The Predator both show the ship crash land on Earth. You think they would work even better as a surprise effect when the alien monster appears if they would show the ship at the start. If they wouldn't, you mean? If they wouldn't show the ship at the start. Okay, I think I know what you mean. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is the second movie from 1982. Another favourite of mine. God, all my favourites have gone through, which I'm so... And I didn't vote on any of this, folks. Creepshow. Again, a movie I saw in the early 80s when we rented VHS player. I don't think we actually owned a VHS player, probably until the mid-80s. But for the first, I don't know, we would rent them every few months or something for a long weekend. A pile of movies, all the latest Bond things, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars would be in there. And then a bunch of movies that you'd never seen before that you'd try your luck with. But yeah, it wasn't until mid-80s until we had a VHS player that we owned or rented, I think, long-term rental. You remember radio rentals, places like that. And Creepshow again was one of those when we rented the VHS player that I saw and absolutely loved. What I like about Creepshow is right from the get-go, it sets a tone. That whole sequence with Atkins and his kid in the house, the pumpkin in the window, the lightning flashing outside, it just sets this really cool tone from the get-go, a really spooky, scary tone. And I actually, the movie's always, I think, pretty much been a 15 in the UK, or a AA, I think it may have been when it first came around. But I always find this to be an incredibly, quite graphic and gory film. But I guess the humor takes the edge off it somewhat. But as a kid, I wasn't really getting much of the humor. I was more kind of terrified by some of the visuals in it. The shot of Galen Ross and Ted Danson returning from a watery grave into the house and taking out revenge on Leslie Nielsen. The shots of them in the background on the security cameras, just walking through the house, covered in seaweed and almost like moaning like they're still underwater. All that kind of noise, almost like dolphin noises they're making. Absolutely petrified me. And then the crate was always one of my favorites, and it was always a segment from Creepshow that I felt would have made a really cool kind of sequel in the new Creepshow TV series. And every week when I watched Creepshow on Shudder, I was just like, I hope to God they bring the creature from the crate back. But they never did. Because obviously at the end of the episode, it's still alive. It's been thrown into the water and it breaks out and, you know, you don't know what happens. And it would have been great to have seen a continuation of that, you know, 40 years later or wherever. But yeah, George A. Romero, Stephen King, such a great cast as well in this with Hal Holbrook again from The Fog. Creepshow's one of the best anthology movies ever made, I think. Hands down. Let's see what you guys think. I can hold my breath for a long time. Yeah, Leslie Nielsen. Just the thought of that, though. Being buried in the sand up to your neck and not being able to move as the tide's coming in. That's just horrible. Tony Foreye says the crate would have been its own film. Yeah, it absolutely could have been. It could have been. I've been watching, I don't know if any of you guys have seen them, but I've been watching recently the old Hammer House of Horror anthology TV show that was a UK show made by Hammer in 1980. They did 13 episodes. And they were made around the time when the British film industry was kind of in a bit of a lull. And so directors and actors and, you know, technicians and editors and things like that all went from film to television. And so these things are so well made and shot on film as well. So the new kind of HD remasters that they've done look incredible. I watched 5 or 6 episodes of it back to back last Sunday. And there's some great episodes. There really are. And I just wish they'd bring something like that back these days. I think the closest we have is in the UK is something like Inside Number 9, but even that's finished now. But yeah, really cool watching these old anthology episodes. Jordan Stevens says, only seen Creepshow once, needs to give it another watch. VHS Halloween was kind of meh. A few good segments, but I enjoyed The Man in the Wall. I've never been able to get into those VHS movies. I know Frank on the Slaughtered Lamb, he's always been a kind of follower of them. I wouldn't say a huge fan, but a follower of them. One flaw of Creepshow is Stashless Atkins. Yeah, and The Fog as well. How long was the wire for that bloody TV? That's a good point. That's a good point. It goes all the way down to the beach. Doesn't he plug it into his... Isn't it all coming out the back of his car, though, or something? I always thought about how my knees would ache being buried in the sand. Imagine being buried in sand and left for dead by Frank Drebin. Yikes. That's exactly who it is. Yeah, yeah. Just add mosquitoes, and the final section of Creepshow is a lot like living in Florida. Yeah, I've said this before, but I was never a massive fan of They're Creeping Up on You. It always was the weakest entry for me. I like the backstory of where they got those cockroaches from. I think Tom Savini and I think it was Tasso. He's one of his makeup guys, Tasso Stavrakis. I think they went to South America to a cave to collect all these cockroaches, and when they got in there were so many, they were nearly waist high in cockroaches. Which sounds horrendous. And he said the volume of them was such that it actually moved them along. Like they weren't walking, they were being sort of carried along in this cave because there were so many cockroaches moving around them. I can't even begin to think about something like that. But yeah, they boxed them all up and transported them back to, I guess, Pittsburgh, where it was probably filmed. And they were under a lot of pressure not to have any escape, but he said it was just impossible to control them. Of course it is. Yeah, that crap, all that horror crap. Evil Alex says, was the first time I saw Leslie Nielsen in a serious role and a good villain. He was kind of a Bond villain, like. He was a little bit, yeah. Okay, let's move on to 83. Psycho 2 won out on the first week, in first place in 1983. A great sequel. A really, really classy sequel that has no right being as good as it is. And it was a movie I'd seen a couple of times up until we started TSL Movie Podcast, and then Frank kept banging on at me about how great it is, and I gave it another couple of chances and watched it, and then really started to appreciate how amazing this film is. The fact that it's, you know, Anthony Hopkins isn't the one doing all the dirty stuff in this film up until the last moments, and it's almost like pressure on him that leads him to doing it because he's been accused of it. It's a really, really cool take on a sequel to that Hitchcock classic, and I think had Hitchcock been alive at the time, I think he died at this point in '82. It's probably why it got made. I think he would have really liked it. I really do. So I think it holds up so well, and even the third one's fairly decent as well. But just that shot on the poster there, I mean, I crow on about this all the time. That shot of Anthony Hopkins at the end of the film walking out at the side of the house and looking up to the window with that lovely Dean Cundy blue background is just perfect. Absolutely such a perfect way to end that film. Tony Forrest says, Darren, I did love how you matched the intro music kicking in with the shovel hit. Yeah, that shovel hit's brutal. In fact, a friend of mine rang me last week, I think it was, and said, I've just watched Psycho 2 again. I have to ask you, how the fuck did they do that scene? I think that's the quickest of cuts in there. It's really well done. So well done. And probably a rubber shovel as well. But yeah, it's a great moment in that film when she gets hit over the head. Did I say Anthony Hopkins? Did I really? Perkins. You know what I mean. Perkins, of course. Jesus Christ. What a schoolboy error. Sorry about that. Psycho 2 was the Blade Runner 2049 of its day. It's a legacy sequel to an unqualified masterpiece that should not work, but absolutely does. It does, absolutely. Jordan says, love Psycho 2. At least my customers have a good time. What do your customers get? Dead. Murderers by you loony. Legit one of my favorite sequels, and horror films actually prefer it over the OG. Ooh, that's a hot take. Do you remember the Psycho house being in Knight Rider? That rings a bell. That does ring a bell. Has anybody ever seen that shot of the Psycho house from behind? With all the, you know, because obviously I don't know whether it's halfway through. I've never been to Universal in California, so I've not actually witnessed it. But is it not kind of just a facade, and everything else behind it's like scaffolding and all that kind of stuff? It's a pretty cool image when you see it, but I don't know if it's a shot of it kind of half built. So maybe somebody who's been to see the house be able to tell me. Daz says, I prefer 3 myself, but 2 is one of the best sequels ever. Logan is live, says, hey Darren, late to the stream and enjoyed these videos over the last several weeks. Let's go, Christine. Yeah, Christine at the moment is in first place with 34% of the vote. 70 of you have voted on this. Friday the 13th part 2 is the Hitcher is second with 29% of the vote. Friday the 13th part 2 is third with 27%, and not a lot of love for Salem's Lot with 10% of the vote. But I'll leave it going until the end, and then we can decide which one is exactly going through. But at the moment, it's between Christine and the Hitcher. I told you guys, he actually killed the hag. Nice one, Duke. Michael Myers 3709 says, is the Beetlejuice house supposed to look just like the Psycho one? I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, let's move on. 80... the runner-up in 83 was Michael Jackson's Thriller. We've spoken a little bit about this already. This was kind of a almost like a joke entry because it was such a part of my childhood. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to put it in here. It's not technically a movie, it's an extended music video, but when you bought the VHS in the early 80s, you had that, and you had like an hour-long making of tagged onto it as well. So it felt like a real package, something that gave you a real peek behind the curtain, because back in the early 80s, we never had DVD extras or anything like that. There were there was the odd making of on TV of something like Star Wars or Superman or something along those lines. But you never really got to see what happened behind the scenes. And this pretty much mapped it all out for you. you know, this hour-long making of episode that's attached to the Michael Jackson's Thriller was fascinating. Watching Rick Baker put all the appliances on people's face and bladder bags, and you know, the werewolf scene, and all the different zombies and how they got their clothes to look like they did. It was fascinating. And so it was just like, you know, how are we? It was like one of the first real experiences of BTS, of behind the scenes footage. So for that reason, I thought, you know what? It was such a big part of my childhood, and so interesting to me that I felt like I should put it in here, not expecting it to qualify for the final. Well, I guess a lot of us are the same age out there, and a lot of you probably voted for it as well, which is great. So yeah, Michael Jackson's Thriller is in the final this Thursday. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Thriller? I saw Ronnie says this poll is ridiculous. Why, Ronnie? Because Friday the 13th's not winning. 10% for Salem's Lot is scandalous. Dude couldn't get no play and fell in love with his car. Yeah, exactly. Christine, howdy Darren and chat. Voted Hitcher for the wild card, but I am 100% okay with any of the options for the wild card. Me too. Me too. See, I can't even look at that poster, says Deshaun. You're really terrified of that, aren't you? He looks like the They Live alien on that cover. He does a little bit, doesn't he? Echoes of the Unknown. Thriller is by far the one thing that scared me the most when I was 3 years old. That and them horrible dogs from Ghostbusters. Oh yeah, the dogs. Fantastic stuff. That was a great experience seeing Ghostbusters in the cinema as well. I'm still amazed Thriller ended up a finalist. Well, I don't know, you know. It's just, if you're of an age, it was a big thing. Actually looks better than he did in real life, says Ronnie. Jordan Stevens says, I remember being so scared thus as a kid, but it was interesting to see the behind the scenes making of Thriller with interviews with Landis, Jackson, and the dance choreography. Yeah, fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. Thriller was my introduction to horror, says Evil Alex. You see, these are the reasons why people vote. You know, it's a big part of your life. I do love Thriller, but it should not be in the expense of 4 battling out for the runners-up spot. Oh, come on. Come on, Tony. Yes, Michael Myers, they actually look alike. They do. Well, I guess so. What you're talking about, They Live. Prefer the 70s Thriller with the eye patch girl. Evil Alex says Thriller has actually my favorite zombie makeup and effects. It's the eyes. Yeah, the eyes look great. They really do. Did Ghostbusters get a 40th anniversary release? It did. And it also got a sequel that year as well. Frozen Empire, I think, 2024. Yeah. Thriller was a great video. That whole album was a cultural phenomenon. I can't think of anything in music ever being comparable to that. Absolutely. That was the biggest selling album of all time. And I remember somebody reading me a stat about the second biggest album of all time, which was, and this was back then, I'm not sure whether it's the same now, but around that time, the second biggest selling album of all time was Back in Black, AC/DC, which blew my mind that it was that high up, you know, compared to Thriller. Always loved Ola Ray, great in 10 to Midnight Showers. I've forgotten she was in that. I only watched 10 to Midnight for the second time recently. The last time I saw it, I think, was back in the Canon days in the 80s. Darren, what's happened to your H2 poster? It's there. I forgot to put it in play. Are you missing it? 1 second. There we go. Got it back for you. I did forgot to put it out. But I'm in the middle of getting some better posters for behind me there, the light up ones. Watch my wife walk in now and absolutely destroy it when the door opens. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Enough said about Thriller. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, was the clear winner in 1984. a VHS watch for me. I remember my mom worked in a video rental store, not a VHS rental store, but a VHS, a VCR rental store. And they had a little section which had all the latest movies and everything. And I walked in one day and it was there on the shelf and I had no idea it was coming out. And I just grabbed it and took it to her and I said, can I rent this? Can I rent this? And she just flipped the video in it and I took it away. And yeah, I don't know what year it was. I seem to, Chris gave me a list of dates recently. Chris Chiswick, shout out to Chris, a friend of mine. He pointed out the Paramount release dates in the UK were quite a few years after the original theatrical releases on the Friday the 13th movie. So I think I might have had to wait until about 86, 87 to see, maybe 86, I think it was, to see Friday the 13th, the final chapter. But 3, 4, and 5, and 6, I think all came out within a very small period of time because the releases had been delayed on VHS for whatever reason. But yeah, still, I think one of the strongest entries in the Friday the 13th franchise. Glad that it's in here. I thought we'd see more Friday the 13th in here, given that that was its decade. But it did kind of peak with this film, although some like 6. I used to like 6, but I don't like it quite as much as I used to do. But I think 4 really does hold up well. So I think it's got a good chance because so many people cite it as being the strongest in the franchise. But what do you guys think? Let's have a look. James says Neil says happy Sunday, Darren. Hey, Neil. James says out of the first 6 Friday films, 4 is at the bottom. Really? Oh, wow. That's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that. Don't think Friday 4 came out on video in the UK until 87. 87, there you go. Excuse me. It probably was. I remember it was late. I was taking a guess at 86, but yeah, 87. It does sound about right because the list Chris sent me with the release dates, I was like, wow, really? All-time favorite Friday, says Neil. 6 is my favorite out of Paramount, followed by 3, says Gina. Wayne Bonner says, look, I love Ted White's Jason. Brutal. I still think Jason stabbed Crispin Glover with the corkscrew because of that dance. Tony Four Eyes says, I prefer Friday 3. I like Friday 3 a lot. I do. I really do. Just that the final showdown with, I can't remember the girl's name now. Anyway, you know the girl in the last 20-25 minutes of that film is fantastic. It really is. As it is with the final chapter as well. Echoes of the Unknown. Here's the winner. The Hitchhiker is hands down the hottest girl in 80s horror with her banana skills. Friday the 13th. You mean the girl that sits at the side of the road and gets through the... Is that right? Is that am I thinking of the right one? The sort of portly girl that sits at the side of the road with a bandana on, yeah? Where have we got now? Ted, where the hell's... He doesn't even say the corkscrew, does he? He just said, where the hell's corkscrew? Rick says, the final chapter has one of the best poster artworks of all time. It's great. It's a great image, isn't it? Really is cool. Jason Live should be in the final, says Tony Four Eyes. I've always preferred part 2 to 4, but it's close. Well, you never know. Part 2 could be in that final. At the moment, it's Christine, followed by The Hitcher, but we may get some more votes. I'll leave it going until the end of the show. Love 3, but it has the worst acting in the entire series. Everyone is just so bad in it. Bandana Banana Girl was a stunner. Yeah, I'm thinking of the right one as well. Portly, how tactful. Final chapter feels very much like The Prowler to me. Well, it's the same director, isn't it? I think. Makes the sense with Zito and Savini teaming up again. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so you know, it's got a good chance. But I don't think it's in any way as good a movie as the likes of The Thing. 84, second place in 84 was A Nightmare on Elm Street, a movie that I saw again on VHS for the first time, a movie that I was a little underwhelmed with on first watch as a young kid. And I think it was just the fact that it was different, and I wasn't programmed to like anything that was different back then. It's kind of, you know, repeat viewings and just falling in love with it over a period of time rather than straight away. It wasn't linear enough for me back then. I was kind of a bit straightforward. I just wanted man with axe, woman, splat, splat. And that's what was going on in most of the movies. And when A Nightmare on Elm Street came on, I had to think a little bit because people were dying in their sleep, and it didn't kind of compute with me as a 12-year-old back then. So you know, I it's a movie that I've just gotten to love over time. I think by the time the second or third movie came out, I was on board properly. But when I look at all the films, the first one is certainly the best. But it didn't have the impact on me that I wanted it to have. Like if I'd have been 20 or 18 or something like that when I first saw it, it would have totally blown me away. But I think I just got swept up eventually in all the Freddy kind of pop culture and just grew to love it that way rather than as an instant first time watch, if that makes sense. I was more comfortable with a more linear slasher film, I think. But let's see what you think. Michael Myers says, before I saw it, my mate at school said, you have to watch it. A girl gets killed with a banana. I don't think A Nightmare on Elm Street has aged well, says Tony Four Eyes. Really? Okay. The girl who plays the... I saw this the other day. I was like, oh, God, that's really... Well, I don't want to say, but the girl who plays Hey Nancy, no running in the corridors. You know, the girl in the corridor with she has the glove on and all that sort of thing. She's been doing the conventions recently. And, like, yeah. I don't know if any of you saw the pictures, but good for her, I guess. Nightmare on Elm Street didn't land with me on first watch. I didn't know what was a dream and what was real, but it's the best of the series, says Grace Imo. 2 and 3 are only other good ones, in my humble opinion. I love 2. And I did think about sneaking 2 into this vote, but I just thought, you know what? I prefer Friday 2 over Elm Street 2, so I'm going to put that in there instead. I prefer Nightmare 2 or the first any day. Friday actually scared me the entire time he was on screen. There is no Jesse. Yeah, that's a great moment. There is no Jesse. Freddy's 2 is still my all-time favorite. Yeah, the look of Freddy in that film is what wins it for me, I think. Freddy's Revenge will always be my favorite, says Texas Nacho. And Brandon says, I think the first Elm Street is definitely the best, and Dream Warriors and Freddy's Revenge are constantly vying for second. In my top 5 horror films, love Nightmare on Elm Street. Great opening, Tina kill scene, still one of the best. Robert actually said in an interview they filmed him up there dragging Tina, but they cut it. Oh, wow. Okay. My Chunky George says, I watched the OG Nightmare once and was completely hooked, aged 8. The music just really hit. My brother sold his copy as he was sick of watching it, so I got Dad to buy me an X rental for a $5. Nice. I like these little stories. I think the first Nightmare on Elm Street is by far the best of the franchise, says Don Mac. It's aged a lot better than any of the later entries. And Goliath says, the first horror movie I watched and the first one to give me nightmares. And Nightmare on Elm Street has a special place in my heart. Thank you, Steve. Jason X is my favorite Friday movie. Oh, I'm sorry. And Michael Myers says 2 is my favorite. James P says, my dad who hated horrors took me to see this. I was underage. He took you to see this at the cinema? Wow. Elm Street was great. West did a great directing job. Tina's death is a great kill, and Johnny Depp kill is great as well. K-Rock. Hey, K-Rock says, Nightmare on Elm Street is still my favorite slasher franchise. Can't wait for the quiz one day. The quiz, yeah. I remember the first 3 horror films I ever saw. Probably way too young. Shining, Exorcist, and Evil Dead. And Tony Foray says, I remember my dad bring home A Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS and causing nightmares. Okay. A lot of love for A Nightmare on Elm Street there. That is definitely in with a shot of winning this. But, you know, it finished second in 1984. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Over to 1985 now. And Fright Night. Fright Night won the year of 1985. Fright Night Again, another VHS rental for me. Didn't see this one at the cinema. But really, you know, it sort of feels like a bit of a gateway horror. But I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And watching it recently for the episode we did on the Slaughtered Lamb, the visual effects really hold up quite well in it, particularly towards the end. There's some great stuff in there. And I think it's a lot better than the second Fright Night film. I know the second Fright Night film has its fans, but the original Fright Night is great fun, I think. And Roddy McDowall, Chris Sarandon, William Ragsdale is his name, I think. Is that right? Yeah, I'm sure it is. Of course I know it is. Amanda Beers as well. Really, really cool cast. Sexy cast. And I wish there'd have been more Fright Night films throughout the 80s rather than just the two. So what do you think of Fright Night? Is it worthy of winning 1985? Do you think it will, you know, threaten the likes of The Thing and Elm Street and Friday Part 4, Halloween 2, all those great movies which are going to be jostling for the top position? Let me know in the comments here. Hopefully the vote will work out for me next week, says my chunky Geordie. Yes. Oh, just on that, I actually emailed Tiermaker on Friday and told them that the countdown issue was there and it was causing all sorts of problems. They said, we're going to write to our developer now and hopefully it'll be fixed by the end of today. Now, I haven't tested it yet. I'll do that in the next day or so, just in case it's not fixed and I can go back to them. But hopefully everything should be good. They were very responsive. So hopefully they've sorted it out. I imagine it's a quick fix. But yeah, fingers crossed the voting won't be interrupted or anything on Thursday evening. I love Fright Night. Roddy McDowall makes it even better than it would have been. Not a bad thing to say about it. You're So Cool, Brewster Doc is superb. I haven't seen it. That's one that I need to watch. I forgot about that. I need to watch that. Vamp, I loved Vamp as well. Vamp is my favorite 80s Bloodsuckers film. The Nosferatu-inspired Grace Jones creature is frightening. She was. She really was. Rustler as well was in that one, wasn't he? Yeah, Vamp was Vamp's kind of a forgotten one. Did we put Vamp? Oh, I remember. Vamp was in the vote and something happened. It glitched and it skipped over it. So it never got a chance. I don't think it would have finished in the top two, but we did include Vamp and there was an issue with it. I remember now. That was in the, what would it have been, 84, 85 or something, Vamp? Fright Night is great, but Return of the Living Dead all day long for 1985. Well, that's coming up next, I think. Love Fright Night. Just wanted the real deal, Tony, says Duke. Absolutely, Duke. Thanks, Darren. Vamp is good fun. Okay. Right, let's move on to the next one, which I think is Return of the Living Dead. Let me just double check. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I'll never forget renting this huge Vestron box. And like, majority of these were rentals. There's very few of these until we get to the late 80s that I saw in the cinema. Renting this, taking a chance on it, not knowing what it was, just really being drawn in by the artwork on the front. And getting it home, watching it, being embarrassed because of all the language and nudity and that kind of stuff, watching it with my dad and then coming away thinking that was amazing. What a great film. Some of the best zombies you've seen on screen. A hell of a bleak ending. Clugulaga, whatever you want to call him, being a great leading man in this film. And Linnea Quigley as well, of course. Just everything that a kind of 13-year-old boy wanted at that point. It was terrific and one of my favorite movies of all time still, and certainly one of my favorite zombie movies. And I own numerous copies of it. I'm looking at them all up there on the shelf. I even just bought one a couple of weeks ago, a brand new Arrow box set of it. Terrific movie. It never goes away. There's always, there's documentaries, books, reissues, celebrations. It's just, people love this film. It's got a real following, and I love it for that. So, do you think it will? Do you think it'll do well on Thursday? I mean, it finished second in 1985, But as I said, more people have come to this vote since we started it, so it may get an opportunity to kind of push forward and trouble those, you know, those movies that are jostling for first place. We'll see. Duke says, actually, I might watch Return again today or possibly tomorrow. Watch it today and tomorrow, Duke. Come on. My favorite film of all time, says Michael Myers 3709. Film actually works good in black and white also, says Evil Alex. Okay, I've never tried that. Never tried that before, but I'll give it a go. Me and Steph just watched the 4K of Return of the Living Dead this afternoon, mate. Yes, happy birthday to Steph. I saw on Instagram that it was her birthday, so please wish her happy birthday for me, Johnny. And yeah, I saw that you bought her it for her birthday. Good for you, mate. Good for you. Send more cops, says Don Mac. Love this movie, says White Rose 902. And Evil Alex says, first zombie film with talking and running zombies. Was it the first one? Was it the first one? Possibly. I don't know whether there's some old movie back from years ago that might have a talking zombie in it or something. But yeah, I know what you mean. Certainly from pop culture, you know. My brother rented this for me. Great fun, but not the best in this list. And K-Rock the Phantom says, I love all three. Return of the Living Dead 4 and 5 are shite. I still don't know why part 2 gets so much hate. It's hilarious. Okay, 1986. And the winner of 1986 was Aliens. A controversial one because we had to have a vote to see if it wanted, if it was warranted being in this contest. Obviously, people were snitty about Aliens, about Predator, about Terminator, even The Burbs, whether they're horror films or not. Beetlejuice as well. And yeah, we allowed Aliens in because there was a vote, and probably 80% of you felt that it was a horror film, or certainly has horror elements. Thank you, Steph. And yeah, we let it in, and it won. Now, whether it will win the whole thing or not, it's possible. And I have a few little stats and things that I'm going to show you at the end of this. But it's in with a chance. It's in with a chance. I saw this on VHS. Again, I couldn't go to the cinema to see it. It was an 18, and I was probably 13 at the time. But just remember watching it on VHS and thinking, this film is insane. Because Alien, I was a fan of. But this was more on, you know, at a time when we were all being converted to big action movies and things like that. This was a big action sci-fi horror. It had everything. And one of the greatest final girls of all time, one of the greatest female lead performances in an action film of all time. Just brilliant, and still really holds up today. In fact, there's probably only one moment that I would say has aged in this film, and that is either Paul Reiser's hair or the back projection when the ship crashes. That's the only moment where I think, oh, that doesn't look too good now. Everything else, because it was there on set in front of you, created, built, just looks amazing. It has a look to it that it's undeniable. This is a proper film that was constructed. It's not digital at all. It looks fantastic. So, you know, a movie that's got a big place in my heart. Would I like to see it win? It's not my favorite film of all time. It would certainly be in my top 20 maybe, or something like that. But who knows? It has an amazing chance of doing well in this. See what you guys think. Evil Alex says, oh, well, if Aliens counts, it's my #1 action horror masterpiece. I would rather self-pleasure with a handful of glass than watch any of the Alien films. All sci-fi, not horror. Oh, you've made me read that out. That's fucking horrible. Once again, I agree. Tony, says Duke. Gina says, I love Aliens, but it's not full horror. However, who cares? This is just good fun. Absolutely. That's the spirit, Gina, of course. Have to vote Aliens down. No, that's not how we play it, Tony. Come on, buddy. We don't vote things down if you don't agree with them being in there. You abstain. You only vote it down if you hate the movie. Play fair, man. Sci-fi can be horror. Also don't cancel out each other. Duke says that back projection scene looks pretty bad today. It does, unfortunately. K-Rock says, I saw Aliens before the original. I was 7 when it came out on VHS. It blew my mind. I hope they bring it back to theaters so I can see it on the big screen. Gray Simo says, how do I get out of this chicken shit outfit? What's going on with the like 63 people and 30 likes? Come on, people, send a like. That would be really cool. Thank you, Gina. If you don't mind liking this, folks, obviously we want to get this out to as many as people as possible, and hitting that like button costs nothing and helps the channel out massively. It really does. And I know it's annoying being asked to do this, but it's true that only 50% of people that watch this channel are subscribed. So if you could subscribe, that'd be a really, really cool thing and would make my day. It really would. Aliens, I think, was Bill Paxton's finest hour as Hudson. His one-liners were the best. Not a wasted moment of dialogue. True. And Juicebox Willie says, Aliens is definitely horror, sci-fi, action. I saw Aliens 2.9 times in the theater. The second time we got in the theater late and missed the opening scene, so we stayed and watched the entire movie over again. Excellent. And Wayne Bonner says, when I first saw Alien and John at chest bursting scene, I remember saying out loud that Alien ran like Seb Coe. I was young in my defense. Oh, when it cuts across the table? It's cool. That's a great moment. What you mean they cut the light? They're animals, yeah. I think Aliens will be top 3 in the final, says Rupert. I think so as well. I think it'll be up there. Okay, let's see what else was in 1986. Personally, I prefer The Fly to... I mean, I love Aliens, but I prefer The Fly. And I'm absolutely hoping, my fingers are crossed, that next year they do some sort of 40th anniversary edition of this, because there's no 4K. There's a kind of okay Blu-ray out there, but that's it. It's a movie that really deserves some love, really deserves a documentary. All the main casts are all still alive. Disney, get out there and interview these people and do some good stuff for this movie. Cronenberg's still around as well. Get him back. Do a comment. Do whatever. Let's build up some brilliant bonus material for this film and put out a really cool version. It's a masterpiece, is this film. In and out, 90 minutes, tragic love story, absolutely fantastic, and some of the best visual effects, practical makeup effects that's ever been put to camera. So I hope this does well. I really do hope this does well. I think up there with The Thing in terms of the best remakes of all time, and The Blob as well, I would say, is up there as one of the best remakes of all time, but didn't qualify, unfortunately. Where are we? What do you think of The Fly? Prefer The Fly to Aliens? Sacrilege. The Fly is actually awesome. It is awesome. And the score, Howard Shore's score, I could cry listening to it. It's that good. It is just brilliant, especially in those dying moments. The Fly is a heartbreaking, thank you, James, heartbreaking masterpiece. It is. He never asks for this. It's just tragic what happens. Be afraid, be very afraid. Great line. Mel Brooks, I think. I don't remember much about The Fly, but I do remember being satisfied. It was the first horror after The Exorcist where they had human drama with the horror. I was fascinated, says Wayne. Great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Need a nice second sight chunky box set, 4K for The Fly. Rupert, I agree with you. I don't care who brings it out, as long as they do a good job and we get something. But now, with all the Fox catalog being in the hands of Disney and the rate that Disney are putting this stuff out, I think they may overlook it. There's lots of movies that have been out recently that have had anniversaries that's under the Disney label that they've just kind of totally overlooked. No way 7 is horror, Brandon. That's the 90s. I'll put Goldblum over Weaver. That's my boy. Love The Fly, but I'm more into Aliens. I mean, it's a nice choice to have, isn't it? Those two classics. I prefer The Fly 2, not The Fly 2. Carpenter said they're working on The Thing 2. What are your thoughts? Look, I had a chat with Dave about this the other night. He said we're trying to figure it out or something along those lines. I know Christian at Planet CHH, I saw his video. He thinks Carpenter was just joking. I don't think he was joking, but I don't think that they're in production like a lot of Facebook pages are saying. I've seen so many adverts. The Thing 2 in production. No, it's not. There are many stages of production. It's not in production at all. It's probably just a conversation they're having at the moment, I would imagine. You know, it's like we're working on it means like he's probably had a few lunches with Universal or Blumhouse, whoever's got the rights at the moment, to discuss what the best course of action would be for pushing this forward. And would he be involved? He'd probably do the music and, you know, offer an opinion now and again and get a producer credit, but I don't think it's progressed any further than that whatsoever, than a conversation at this stage, I don't think. But yeah, all these Facebook posts, Twitter posts, Instagram, The Thing's in production with a picture of Kurt Russell. They probably don't know anything about it at this stage. Trying to figure out how much shitty CGI we could use. Yeah, no. I think the key to it is not doing that. And that's one of the things the Thing Expanded covers, is they touch on the sequel and, you know, what happened with that, which was obviously, as we all know, practical effects, which then were sort of taken away from the director and enhanced with CG, and yeah, it just doesn't work, does it? They shouldn't make a Thing sequel. Blumhouse will fuck it up. Well, they were the ones that initially said that they had it, but I don't know whether that's still the case. It might be Universal that are taking the reins on this. Could be. Who knows? Still waiting for Fly 2 Blu-ray release over here. Underrated sequel. Yeah. Is there a Fly 2 Blu-ray? I don't own it. I own it digitally. That's it. But I don't have the Fly 2 on Blu-ray. Okay. 1987. A great movie again. We didn't get the Evil... Well, we did get the Evil Dead, but it was withdrawn because of the Video Nasty era and everything. And so I actually saw Evil Dead 2 before I saw Evil Dead, I believe. Hey, Adam. Sorry, I just saw you in the chat there. And I loved Evil Dead 2. For a long time, I thought it was so much better than the original Evil Dead. And then over time, I've kind of got to like the original Evil Dead more than Evil Dead 2. I don't know whether the humor kind of grates on me over time with Evil Dead 2, but as a kid, I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great fun. I thought, I mean, hats off to Bruce Campbell. He goes through hell in this film. The amount of punishment he goes through, and you can see he's doing this stuff himself a lot of the time. Thrown downstairs, he gets his hand chainsawed off. He's beaten, thrown across that kitchen, thrown into cupboards, somersaulted on the floor, and all this kind of. He just pushed through the woods by that unseen force, and it's just. It's a great physical performance. It really is. And he must have been absolutely wrecked after this production. It's a great horror film. It really is. A great fun horror sequel. But over time, I've come to appreciate the first film more than the second one. I still love the second one. I still love it. But I think the first one's a better movie. Okay. Another great, where have we got now? Another great sequel and horror comedy. Yeah, absolutely. Evil Alex. The reputation for Evil Dead was better than the film itself. Do you think? Interesting. Evil Dead 2 isn't horror, says Brandon. Long live Evil Dead, but I'll always prefer the OG. Good man, Duke. Love Evil Dead 2, but for some reason surprised and ecstatic that it won the vote. Love the first 20 minutes when it's just Ash. Yeah. Interesting that it took everybody so long to kind of realize what they were, until Raimi sort of explained what they'd done with the film and why Evil Dead 2 is laid out like it is. Evil Dead 2 has the perfect blend of horror and comedy. I've always found Evil Dead 2 kind of pointless, but better than 3. Nothing tops the original. Looking forward to the next installment, as Rise was okay. Yeah, Evil Dead Burn, I think it is. The video cassette cover I dared myself to rent at the local video store because of the skull. Such amazing memories. We had much better artwork than that in the UK, which I should have put up on here, but I totally forgot. It was done by Graham Humphreys, who did the original Evil Dead artwork and that Nightmare on Elm Street artwork, UK artwork. He did a lot of horror in the 80s and still does a lot now. But yeah, I do think the UK Evil Dead artwork is better than that. That to me doesn't sell it to me, that picture there, that one sheet. Mike Chucky Geordie says, I adore Evil Dead 2. It didn't make me ill for a week like the melt in Deadites in the OG. I still watch the OG, but my brother was very grateful I didn't tell my mum why I was ill. So the film made you ill. Wow. Okay. There's a great Evil Dead 2 gag in High Fidelity where Cusack and Jack Black try to figure out who haven't seen Evil Dead 2 yet. I've seen High Fidelity. I'm trying to remember that moment now. It's a long time since I've seen High Fidelity. Evil Dead is the most consistent franchise. Come at me, Scream fans, says Brandon. I love the UK artwork for the cinema and VHS posters. Got my attention straight away. I agree. I agree with you, Wayne, completely. They did some really good artwork for horror in the UK in the 80s. I had no awareness of the Evil Dead until Evil Dead 2. Later premiered on HBO and was all anyone talked about. Later I went back and rented the original. Thanks, Don Mac. Okay, how are we doing with this poll? 87 of you have voted so far. Christine is winning with 36%. Friday the 13th Part 2 at 28%. 26% for The Hitcher and 10% for Salem's Lot. So it looks like we might have to put Christine in, but we'll see. Okay, Lost Boys. I know there's a lot of fans of Lost Boys. It did finish second, though, in 1987, behind Evil Dead 2. Lost Boys was a movie that I could have gone to the cinema to see. I didn't really know much about it. There was a bit of chatter at school, I remember. People saying it was great. I think, and this is my ignorance as a kid growing up in the 80s, anything that wasn't an 18 rating was shit, in my opinion, at the time, because there couldn't possibly be any gore or horror or, you know, anything that would appeal to me if it wasn't an 18. And so I shunned a lot of 15 rated movies, which would be like, if you're in the US, like your PG-13, which I think maybe is what Lost Boys was. I don't know. And so it wasn't until later, a couple of years later, that I actually gave The Lost Boys a chance and absolutely adored it. Loved it. Loved the film. Always wanted to be at that beach party with Tim Capello on the saxophone. But yeah, I was just like stupid and I'd look at a film and I'd judge it on what rating it was before I'd rent it. No, I don't want that. That's a 15. That's for kids. Even though at the time I was 14. So, The Lost Boys is a movie I could have gone to the cinema to see, but I never did. Great fun vampire flick with a banger soundtrack. It is a great soundtrack. Really cool soundtrack. Definitely one of my go-to movies, says Duke. I rewatch it every summer. Tony Four Eyes says, I didn't mind Lost Boys, but I never got the feeling for it. Others did. Okay. Love The Lost Boys. Think it could be a dark horse for the final. Could be, although it did finish second place in 87. Lost Boys is a good film. Great fun and loved the Grandad, but preferred the darker scenes in the film. Good soundtrack as well. And Gray Simo says, great stream. Brilliant stuff, Darren. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. That's really appreciated. Let me just check I haven't missed any other... double check on here. There hasn't been any others that I've missed. No, we're good. Okay. 18 and excerpts only back in the day. Yeah, it was right. I was the same with certificates. Always went for the 18 rated films. Yeah, it was just a thing. Like somehow a 15 rated movie was shit. Lost Boys is okay for me, not my go-to, says Deshaun. Jukebox Willie says, wish we could get an uncut version or director's cut. Kiefer said there was way more gore filmed. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Apparently now a Broadway musical is Lost Boys. Yeah, I saw that the other day. Love the grandpa at the end, not saying a word about vampires. Whole film crashing in with a car, kill the villain. I hate those damn vampires. That's what he says, isn't it? The one thing I hear about all the damn vampires. Back in the 80s, I preferred Near Dark to the Lost Boys, but now I prefer the Lost Boys because it's just so awesome. And Near Dark is a great film as well. Did we include Near Dark in this? We did, didn't we? It didn't get anywhere, though. I just think it's not been as widely seen as something like Lost Boys. Myers fan says, when did this happen? I put the stream up yesterday, buddy. Well, you get to go back and watch it all, Andrew. This isn't the final, mate. Just don't panic. We're just going through all the titles and getting people's thoughts on them, because it's just something I didn't really get a chance to do when we're running the live vote. So much going on that a lot of the stuff, the chat, that doesn't really sink in because I'm kind of prepping what's coming next, and I just wanted to kind of kick back and chat with everybody about the films, my thoughts on them, your thoughts on them, rather than reeling off stats about, you know, Rotten Tomatoes and things like that. Although we have got a bit of an interesting couple of slides coming up, which will make me wonder what will finish first when we get to the vote on Thursday. Never saw the sequels and not planning. No, I haven't either. Did I see the second Lost Boys? Isn't there like 3 or 4? I think the third one had Corey Heyman Feldman in it, but it was awful. Apparently, it's like direct-to-video nonsense. Just woke up, still a bit ill. Oh, sorry to hear that, mate. Sorry, Andrew. Okay. Let's have a look at 1988, Halloween 4. I did see this in the cinema. Because it came out in the UK late. It came out in early part of 1990. So I did get the opportunity to see it. I was working in a cinema. I started working in a cinema at 16. On my 16th birthday, I took a job in a cinema as an ice cream seller. And then was promoted to projection. So I worked in projection from about 17 years old or something like that. Tony Foray says, do you watch the streams back now? No. Never. No, I don't do it. No, you're joking. It's 2 hours of my time. I'm not sitting back and watching it. The only thing I'll do is I'll go back if somebody says there's an error or there's a glitch or something, I'll check that. And then today I went back and just checked what the third places were in each episode. I just scroll through. I never sit and watch them. I watch other people's content. I'd never sit and watch my own. Good God. I might check that, like at the moment I'm playing some music in the background, that's not too loud, that kind of thing. You know, just quality control, maybe just dip in and out, but never would I watch a stream from beginning to end. No. It's for you guys. Duke says, I've only just noticed, is the background music from Body Double? So there's a guy online and a lot of YouTubers use him. He's called Carl Casey. Shout out to Carl Casey. He's great. And he has a site called White Bat Audio. And he creates his own Carpenter, horror, techno synth inspired music. And there is a ton of it on there. And he loves all the stuff we love. 80s horror, that kind of thing. And he put this on there. It's called Reckless Love. And if you listen to it, it's very much Pino Donaggio's Body Double music. Great theme. And I've just sort of adopted it for this channel because it's just so relaxing and chilled in the background. And I love that score for Body Double anyway. So it's a take on it, and you'll find a lot of his music on that website, on that YouTube page. Brandon, could you put White Bat Audio's link in the channel? Because I shout him out on every episode in the comments below, and he insists on that. If you don't give him a credit on each episode, then you get demonetized, and in some instances blocked as well. So I always give him a shout out, and he's very, very, in fact, I had to contact him this morning about something, and he responds straight away. He's a great guy. I think he's in Europe somewhere, but he does the most amazing music that we can use for free as long as he gets a credit. And legend, absolute. What a guy. What a guy. You should check out his YouTube page because you'll be hooked. His music is fantastic. Okay, yeah, Halloween 4. So I did see this in the theater in the cinema 18 months after it came out, I think, in the US. Halloween 5 was already out in the US when this got to our shores, and enjoyed watching it. It wasn't around for long. It played for a week, took very little money, and yeah, all its success came out of the US, I think, and on VHS since. And the failure of this in UK cinemas in 1990 when it was released, I think, meant that Halloween 5 went straight to VHS. There was no need for it at all. Nobody was demanding it or anything like that, apart from me probably. Yeah, it was watching Halloween 4 in the cinema was a great experience, and there wasn't many people in there when I watched it, but I did really enjoy it, and a bit confused with the mask and things like that. The score took a little while to kind of vibe with me, but once you get past those things, I think it's one of the stronger sequels for sure in the franchise. Probably the second best sequel. I would say Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 3, Halloween 2018, I think. Yeah. But what do you guys think? Do you think it's got a good chance of maybe winning this? A lot of fans of this out there. I'll show you some stats in a minute, which might kind of surprise you. But Mask was the first one. What was that say, Deshaun? Mask was the first one creepy to me. Oh, really? In this film? Okay. Halloween 4 is third on my list after OG and Halloween 2, says Steve. And Tony says with the H2 mask, H4 would have been perfect. Yeah, we'll get it one day. I'm sure somebody's going to go back in and CGI that stuff or AI that stuff, and we'll get the right mask one day. Synthwave music, that's what I'm looking for. That's what it is. Yeah. It's like being in an elevator. That's not the effect I was looking for, Tony. Wish they used the mask of the poster. What a scam when you're watching Timu Mask Myers in the film. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Halloween 4 is the second best sequel behind Halloween 2. The opening credits is amazing. That fall atmosphere was freaking awesome, and that Howarth score was great. It is. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Brandon. There you go, folks. White Bat Audio. Click on there, subscribe, and listen to all his music because it's terrific. If you love synthwave, Carpenter-esque music, he's got a ton of it. It's great. Wayne says, I've heard White Bat Audio. Absolutely superb stuff. I have tons of his stuff on a playlist. Yeah, he is great. If the mask would have looked like the original, 4 would have been the best sequel. Possibly, yeah. Would like to have seen the bandage mask Myers. A lot of people say that. I wouldn't have minded that either. I would have been pretty cool with that. Rather than Timu Mask Myers, as someone just said. Funny, Darren, I started working at my local cinema on my 16th birthday. I adored that job and stayed until I was 21. But my other bar jobs just didn't give me time to keep up. Yeah, I worked in a cinema until the year 2. So I did 12 years in cinema. And then went on to my current. I've only had 2 jobs really. One's working in the cinema, and then one's working where I work now. And I've been there for 25 years this January. So, yeah, 36 years in the film industry this year. H4 is my third favorite, along with H2 and 78. And Steve says, plus we get slightly unhinged Loomis, not full alcoholic. Yeah, no, that's it's getting there. It's getting there. He's starting to tipple in the old truck with the preacher, isn't he? I remember dragging that giant poster out of a bush shelter and running down the street. Really? I think Johnny's got one of them. Johnny Rocker in the chat earlier on, he's got a bush shelter Halloween 4 poster, I think, which he got Daniel Harris to sign, I believe. Okay. Wilbur was a great choice, says Chester. The gas station scene in this is the best one, period. Saw this on Halloween night when I was 10. Finally seeing Michael back after having to wait so long was a great feeling. It was. I remember reading Fangoria mag. I mean, bearing in mind, we had to wait so long to see this film. But I remember in about 87 reading in Fangoria. That was obviously before the internet. A little bit of what was to come in the next issue of Fangoria. And they were talking about the fact that Michael Myers is going to return in Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. And it was just like, this will be in the next issue. I was just like, I could have ran out of the house screaming. It was like, how is this going to happen? This is amazing. Michael Myers, Halloween, blah. Yeah, just that little nugget of information in the back pages of Fangoria. Okay. 1988, runner-up was Child's Play. Saw this in the cinema as well. A 15, which was odd. I was probably a bit, go on, I'll go, but what the hell? I'm okay. Child's Play's fine. I'm not a big Child's Play fan, I'll be honest. The first one for me is the best, and it's not. It's fine. I don't get that. I mean, I know there are Child's Play super fans out there, aren't they? But I was never a massive Child's Play fan, and there are some great moments. I mean, I love the bit when she's kind of holding it up and he turns on her, "You stupid bitch, you stupid slut." All that stuff's fantastic. And look, the animatronics and everything are brilliant in this, but it just never. I was a Freddy, Michael, Jason guy at this point, and this was a little kind of sanitized for me, I guess. I'm getting onto that 15 rated horror again, aren't I? But yeah, I'm never a massive Child's Play fan. I don't see that it will trouble any top tier movies in this final. I think it'll do okay. I mean, they're all great entries. I don't see Child's Play winning. What do you guys think? Johnny says, I've got that massive Halloween 4 poster down. Yep, signed by Danielle. Yeah, I remember you telling me, yeah. You had the same mask in Halloween 2018, bro. Oh, okay, what was that? The first 3 Child's Play films are good, but not great. But after that, they lost me. Deshaun says, I love 3. Chucky's going to be a bro. We know what we wanted to say. The pickup scene was great when Loomis gets picked up at that. It's a great scene with Loomis and the other guy. It is. It's fun. Not a big fan of Child's Play. I thought Bride of Chucky was the best. Chucky was better when done for laughs. I like Child's Play, but damn, I was unbelievably gutted the Blob didn't get through. I've only seen the first 2 Child's Play films. Yeah, I think I've seen all of them, but I literally was just watching them for horror's sake. That's it. I say include all the wild cards except Salem's Lot because that aired in the US in November 1970. Look, you just listen. Don Mac, you're not the only people in the world. You will notice that now and again there are some films that came out in the US after and some that came out before. So it's not all about the US. I think when we look at what was the film that I had in the other day? It was one that was in 1989, and it actually didn't get released in the US until 3 years. It was Society, I think. So Society was released we had it in 1989 because it was released in Europe in 1989, but in the US didn't make it there until 92, I believe. So it's not always about the US. There's a bigger world out there. Child's Play isn't winning. I agree, Darren. It's definitely fun to watch, but it has 0 chances. And Brandon says, my sister took me to see this, watching these films as a kid, while knowing most kids weren't allowed to make them feel special. Child's Play is all right. Not a go-to movie for me. Can't take a killer doll seriously. And Domac says, I love the first 2 Child's Play movies, but burn the rest. They're all so bad. Miles Fan says, I'll have to watch back. Have a good warm-up, guys. Thank you, Andrew. I think Child's Play made the killer doll premise great and unique. Brad gave him a lot of character and charm. He certainly did. And apparently he's a lovely guy as well, from those that I know that have met him. Okay. So, controversially, we allowed The Burbs into the horror of 1989. And 80% of you wanted it in across 2 votes. So we allowed it in. And it did well. It won. It's a quality movie. And I'm glad that people see it as a movie that has a lot of horror elements. A movie that I was late to, a movie that I need my arm twisting to watch. And when I did watch it, I absolutely adored it. And it's not long ago. It's a film that just passed me by completely in the late 80s. Probably because it was this, I don't know, 12 rated movie that had this kind of like edge to it that I just was more interested in seeing, I don't know, a Schwarzenegger or Stallone movie at the time, or a Friday movie or something like that, and just was ignorant to it. Watched it for an episode on Slaughtered Lamb and absolutely loved it. Really did. I think it was last year or the year before. And now I own it. So congratulations to the Burbs for winning on Thursday night. Texas Nacho said, I can't understand how the Burbs made the cut. I'm flabbergasted because we had a vote. It wasn't anybody's decision. It was a general consensus that people wanted it in here because they saw it as a scary movie. Love the Burbs. So funny with a great cast and horror elements. One of the best horror comedies I've seen. Love Bruce Dern in it. There you go. If Burbs count, where is Gremlins? Another great... Gremlins was in here. Gremlins didn't get through. 1984 was a strong year, Evil Alex. But the Gremlins didn't qualify. You remember we had Elm Street and Friday the 13th that won out in 1984. The Gremlins was in there, but it didn't get through at all. Another great Joe Dante film in general. Joe Dante, hella underrated director. Inner Space, Howling, Small Soldiers, great also. Yeah, Piranha, my favorite. Love the Burbs, quintessential Joe Dante flick. Weekend at Bernie's is more horror than the Burbs. What was the beta VHS book used to be called back in the early 80s? I knew about H3 because of it. The beta VHS book? What was it? Like a compendium? I don't know. I'm sure there were plenty of books about... Yeah, no, I don't know. But thank you for the super chat, Gina. Honestly, I don't know what you're thinking of. You knew about Halloween 3 because of it. Okay, no, I've no idea what that is. Sorry. Within this group, horror comedy is A-OK, but horror action is sacrilege. Everyone wants to set their own rules. Never heard of this movie, says Deshaun. Treat yourself, mate. Treat yourself. Carrie Fisher is a stunner in this film. She is. What do you do? Fight his neighbors? Honestly, watch it. Watch it. I bloody adore the Verb, says Mikey Van D. Bruce Dern is class. You got them monthly with new releases. A book? You mean a magazine? There was Video Today. I remember that. Remember Video Today magazine? That had all the latest, new rentals and all that kind of stuff in it. But I don't remember a book. That would have been quite expensive to produce a book every month. Okay. The runner-up in 1989, and deservedly so as well, was... Oh, I've lost it. Where's my slide for 1989? Well, it's Pet Sematary. I seem to have lost the slide for Pet Sematary. That's a pain. Okay, never mind. Pet Sematary was 1989, runner-up. I saw this in the cinema on the big screen. The staff at the cinema were up in arms because I came in to watch an 18-rated movie when I was only 16. This was back in probably in about the December of 1989. And one woman there tried to get me thrown out and said it was disgusting that I was in there. And the manager came down and she said, no, he works here. He's allowed. It's like, how am I supposed to work in a cinema at 16 in and around movies that are older than I am if you're not going to let me in the auditoriums? And in the end, I had to have a written letter of consent from my dad, which was put on file to say he was happy with me working in an environment that had 18-rated movies. So that was great because then I could just go in and watch anything without anybody moaning. But I remember this one woman called Sue who was just seething at me all the time whenever I came in, and she couldn't say anything because I had that letter on file. Burbs is a must-watch. Hilarious film, says Evil Alex. The Burbs at the expense of those 4 wild cards? How? Horror is a wide... Thank you, Brandon. I should leave that on the screen. You should put that on your gravestone. Horror is a wide umbrella. There we go. I couldn't agree more. But yeah, Pet Sematary. A film I don't think I appreciated at the time. I've kind of appreciated it more over time. Mary Lambert, was it that directed it? It was, absolutely. Fred Gwynne, and we talked about it the other night with that ankle scene, which is one of those moments on screen where I don't know anybody that can watch that and not wince in some way. It's horrific. It really is. They should go back to voice trailers and show nothing. It'll piss everyone off, says Gina. Pet Sematary was the first horror film I saw. Still one of my favorites. The story and effects are great, and the Zelda is still creepy. She's very creepy in that film. In fact, I used her on the intro to this episode. Don Mack says, I read the book Pet Sematary, and the movie is mostly a faithful adaptation. Okay, I've never read it, so I wouldn't know, but that's good to know. That's good to know. Jolene Hannah says, I love the Burbs. And Brandon says, what do they call Karens in the UK? I bet they're called Beatrice. I don't know whether there is a word for a Karen in the UK, because the word Karen has only come to my attention from doing this. And then obviously seeing it on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know there is a... I guess it's Karen. I guess it's become universal. Yeah, it's something I had to ask my wife. Why are people calling each other Karens? And then she explained it to me. I watched Pet Sematary for the first time a week ago and enjoyed it, says Rupert. And Chester Franklin says, Pet Sematary was a good movie. Miko Hughes as the baby, so cute. Fred Gwynne was more scary in My Cousin Vinny. Okay, let's have a look at something. Let's have a look at something fun here. So I'm just gonna go back to this screen here, and what I've done is I've put the 20 movies into 3 different rankings, just so we can see what the popularity of these films is. So first one is box office, and how all these movies rank in terms of box office, which gives you an idea of the level of popularity of them and whether they're in with a chance. So if I put this up here, you will see that Aliens was the biggest moneymaker out of all those movies. 85.2 million at the box office. American Werewolf in London is second at 62 million. And these are domestic box office numbers here. Pet Sematary, 1989, 57.5 million. The Shining took 44 million. Now, you could argue that some of these are at the end of the 80s and some are at the start of the 80s. But still, you know, you can sort of gauge an idea of how popular they were from the box office. Like 1980, The Shining taking 44 million was a hell of a lot of money. And American Werewolf in London taking 62 million in 1981 was a hell of a lot of money. The Fly is in 5th place at 40 million. The Burbs at 36.6. Psycho 2, 34.7. Child's Play, 33. Friday the 13th Final Chapter, 32.9 million. The Lost Boys, 32.4. Elm Street in 1984, 25.5 million at the box office. Halloween 2, 25.5 million as well. Fright Night, 24.9 million. Creepshow, 21 million. The Fog in 1980 took 21.3 million. The Thing in 1982 took 19.6 million and is in 16th place in terms of box office. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, took 17.8 million in 1988. The Return of the Living Dead took 14.2 million in 1985. Evil Dead 2 is at the bottom of the pack because Michael Jackson's Thriller obviously wasn't released in the cinema, and you know there's no box office attributed to it. So Evil Dead 2 is in final place technically with 5.9 million, and the kind of least successful in the cinema of all these movies. So by this, it's possibly Aliens that's going to take it, or American Wolf in London with 62 million box office. If that converts to popularity, American Wolf in London's huge. But what I thought I'd do as well is I'd have a look at what the critics' scores were and audience scores for these films and see if anything, changes there. So let's have a look at the critics' scores first. And this is percentages out of 100. So all the reviews that came in for these films are aggregated and they put on Rotten Tomatoes. And, you get a percentage score out of it. You guys know how it works. So A Nightmare on Elm Street is top, I think, simply because alphabetical order, because it's got exactly the same Rotten Tomatoes score as Aliens and The Fly. And then we have Fright Night with 91%, American Werewolf in London with 89%, Evil Dead 2 with 88%, The Thing 85%. Now The Thing has kind of probably changed over time because reviews initially were terrible, and so as people have reviewed it after the fact, it's increased that Rotten Tomatoes score, I think. The Shining in 1980, 84%. The Fog, 76%. The Lost Boys, 75%. Return of the Living Dead, 70%. Psycho 2, 67%. Creepshow, 66%. Child's Play, 64%. Pet Sematary, 58%. The Burbs, 56%. Halloween 4, 41%. Halloween 2, 35%. And Friday the 13th, the final chapter, at 25%. So, final chapter has got the worst score across all those films. Of course, Michael Jackson's Thriller wasn't reviewed by critics, so there's no tomatometer score for that. So, after that, I thought, well, okay, maybe if I look at the audience score of these films, that might give us an indication of what will finish first. So this is, when you go on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is aggregated, and then you, as a punter, can put your score in as well, and that then gets aggregated and is sometimes higher than what the critic score is and sometimes lower than what the critic score is. But it helps out on movies like Friday the 13th films, whereas they're probably reviewed quite badly, but you have a fan base there who are willing to give it a decent score because it's a 5-star movie to them. So I thought maybe let's have a look at that and aggregate those scores and put those into a ranking and see how things change. So here we go. The audience ranking has Aliens at the top with 94%, The Shining with 93%, The Thing with 92%, Evil Dead 2 with 89%. Thriller has a lot of audience reactions on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's 89%. So that's the first time Thriller's been included in any of these rankings here. American Wolf in London, 85%. The Lost Boys, 85%. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 84%. The Fly, 83%. Return of the Living Dead, 80%. Fright Night, 77%. The Burbs, 71%. Creepshow, 69%. And Child's Play, 65%. In 15th place, The Fog with 65% audience score. Halloween 2 with 63%. Psycho 2 with 62%. That surprises me. I thought that would be higher. Pet Sematary with 60%, and then Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers in 19th place with 53%. Bottom of the pack, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 52%. So everything is pointing to Aliens winning this. Because it's ahead, it's second place in the critics. It's first place in with the audience. And it's, let me just get the right one up. Where are we now? There. And it's first place in box office. So will Aliens do it? Who knows? Tune in on Friday, folks. Friday. What am I talking about? Thursday, 10 o'clock. It could be Friday for our Australian friends. Let me just take these off. There we go. And so the 96 of you have voted for the wild card. I'm going to close that poll now. And there we go. Christine is the wild card and going through into the final. Friday the 13th finished at 30%. The Hitch are at 27% of the vote, and not a lot of love for Salem's Lot with just 10%. But nearly 100 of you voted on that. So thank you, folks. Thank you so much to everybody for joining on this Sunday afternoon. I'm going to go now because I have a date with Frankenstein. I was supposed to watch it on Friday, but things were happening on Friday, which meant I couldn't watch it. And so I promised myself I'll watch it tonight. So I'm going to turn on Netflix, have something to eat, and watch Frankenstein. I hear such good things about it. I'm really excited. Keep an eye on Instagram over the next 4 or 5 days. I may throw some other little polls up and things just before the final on Thursday. If you're not on Instagram, fine. I'll put it in the YouTube community as well. And yeah, I'll see you all 10 p.m. UK time on Thursday evening and 5 p.m. Eastern, and we'll thrash this out and see what the best horror movie of the 1980s is. It's exciting. I can't wait. I'm really excited to see what it is. Maybe it's Aliens, maybe it's The Thing, The Fly, final chapter. Who knows? We'll find out on Thursday. See you then, folks.